is we'll look at changing that up a little bit. We said we could edit that and make changes to that hole. Well, let's say we wanted to make that a counterbored hole. And to do that, we can go in there and see that down at the bottom, I'm going to turn off the countersink. But on the sizing, let's see, show custom sizing. And here are my different options. Now, if we zoom in on that, you'll note that this first diameter is the 1/2 inch that we started with. So we would go to 1/2 inch on there. Somehow that got switched. The second one is the actual counterbore diameter. So let's make that 0.875. And I'm just pulling numbers out of the air. And then this third one is how deep do you want that? And if you hover over it, you can see that counterbore depth. And let's make that 1/4 inch. And now note it did default to through all. So we'll leave that like it is, and we'll go ahead and accept it. And we'll go back to our solid shaded image, and we'll note that there's our, and my system's getting a little bit slow right now, but you'll note that there's a counterbored hole. There we go. And I just had it. You can see it's going all the way through, and if we rotate that back around, you can see it's through there. But the counterbored hole has that recessed area there. So, but the key here is we can change that to any of those different styles that we want. Now, and the other thing about that, let's say we decided, we actually had that as a 1/2 inch hole originally, and there you can see everything came back. But we really wanted that to be threaded, so we could go here to the straight tap and change this all around now. Now this time, we want to do, note this is now says 0-80. Well, that's the thread size. So if we wanted a 1/2 13, we could go in here, and there's your thread size, 1/2 13. Let's see, what else do we want on this? It is blind. Now, if it's blind, notice it says this is the blind hole depth, and this is the tap thread depth. So you have to drill a hole into this part, and that's called a tap drill. You have to drill that first, and it should be deeper than the amount of thread you want. Notice this defaulted to 1 inch on the thread depth. That's because the system knows that if you're drilling a 1/2 inch hole, you should have at least 2 times thread engagement in that hole. So you should, that bolt should go down into that hole twice as long as the hole is in diameter. So 1/2 inch, so you multiply that by 2, and you'd be going down in 1 inch. Okay, so you can also change the thread class. 2B is the default, but you could go to 1B or 3B, 1 being tighter. But the general classification is 2B. The B just means it's a hole. If it's a shaft, it would be an A. And then you can put countersinks on it if you choose to. Okay, and that's not a bad idea. So nothing has really changed there. Also note that this 0.4219 diameter for the actual tap drill size is how big a diameter drill bit you would have to use to drill the hole before you tapped it. That does come up by default. Leave that alone. Notice if I go in there and I change this to a 1/2 20, that number changes. So it does make a difference. This is 75% thread engagement, and that's standard. So let's just leave that alone. We'll hit OK, and you can see that we now have. Get off of there. We now have a threaded hole, as opposed to just a complex or a simple hole. And also note, if we go to the view that we're trying to punch this in at, notice there's a circle there that does represent the threads. We also need to go in and maybe make a change on the options. We talked about options earlier. And if we go in and look at that on the display, let's see, I don't think it's here. We're good there, but on, and it may not even be in this particular view. I think it's under the document properties. Detailing, I believe it is. Shaded cosmetic threads will allow us to see that as a shaded image. And I've got some extra shading on here I'm not too wild about, where I've got that hidden part there. Let's see if we go back to options 2. I wanted to see something more than that. Let's see. Detailing. Let's go to model display once. And that's not it. That was the main one under detailing. It was the cosmetic threads. And there's shaded cosmetic, and then there's cosmetic. Yeah, I think we want to leave both of those on. Yeah, and we'll just leave that like it is for now. But it should eventually, it'll show us that, and maybe we're doing something else here a little bit wrong. But so that's the whole in general. And we'll be using this throughout, but the main thing there was the placement as well. So that's for if we want to just create a hole on a flat plane. I'll do another video to show you how to do it if we're on a circular type feature. So if we want to drill through a pin or something.